waiting for some people to join. This is Pedro speaking. I'm part of the artist relations team here at Musiversal, and today I'm joined by awesome Bruno Migliari, our bass player, that's going to, lay down some
Hi
bass tracks for
everyone.
us. How you doing, Bruno?
All right. I'm good. I'm good. Had a good stream of sessions earlier today in the afternoon. All right. Feeling good.
That's awesome. So we're just kind of waiting for a couple of people to join. We already have Hector and radiotherapy with us today, and now John just joined as well. So what me and Bruno are going to do today is we're gonna record some bass in a track that I'm producing for a client of mine, which actually is right in the other room right now, working on some lyrics. And soon he'll be able to listen to the bass. This is going to be really exciting. But before we start, Bruno, can you maybe share your screen and show us how a regular bass session looks like in Logic?
All right. I'll do it right now. So, hey, Google is asking me to record. Oh, hold on. Now, okay. Here it is. Can Can you guys see my screen now? Not yet,
Uh,
right?
I cannot. Let me see real quick what's up. Maybe I'll make
Chrome.
Bruno.
Chrome is asking me to drop out, come back in again. So it's gonna allow me to share the screen. I don't know why.
Awesome.
Should I do that?
Yeah,
Because I'm gonna have to leave the meeting for a while. Hold on.
not a problem. We can just welcome some
Okay.
people in while they're joining, and Bruno should be back pretty soon.
All right.
For now, today we're gonna record this song, which is like a pop song by a Brazilian artist, and we have a lot of influences going on this track. The first influence is Ed Sheeran, of course, very popular singer, and it's a pretty simple bass line, but very, very, very effective. Before we have Bruno joining us, I do want to remind everyone that's already here that tomorrow we're opening up Unlimited for another cohort. So if you're in our wait list and you're receiving an invitation, uh, don't wait and just make sure you are able to join because the door is closing real soon, and we really want you guys to be able to take advantage of this because this is a great platform, and we want to see what kind of music that you guys are going to do. We know it's going to be awesome. So we have Bruno back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Okay. Now it's working.
Okay, now we can see your screen. So this is what a
All
typical
right.
Logic session looks like.
Yeah. So the purple stem here is what we call the client stem. It's what Pedro sent me. And as you can see, there's a folder here where my arrow is. And inside this folder, there will be as many tracks as the client send me. So, for instance, if there's drum tracks separate from bass tracks and vocals tracks, there will be like three or four tracks under this client stems folder. And following that, there's my folder. So it's my recordings and two tracks for electric bass on the top, which is direct signal from my bass. It's the DI channel. And then there's the second channel which has the sound coming out of my amplifier, captured by a microphone in front of it. So I usually record electric bass on two tracks and also double bass which is we're not going to be recording today, but usually I record it in two tracks as well. One is the mic in front of the amp, the other is the piezo pickup embedded in the instrument's bridge.
That's awesome. So, right before we start talking about the song itself, can we talk a little bit about the file delivery system? Because I usually just send one file with everything. I know that you personally like to hear the song itself and a little bit of the vocals, but what kind of files are you prefer to receive from the clients when you're about to enter a session, record a session?
Well, one factor to weigh in is the fact that the more files you send to a musician before a session, more time he will need to set these files into his DAW session. So, given that we have 15 minutes for preparation before we actually start recording live with the client, uh, I would say that a maximum of four files, audio files, is desirable. More than that is overkill. Because, for instance, I have no use for separate drum instruments. For instance, bass drum, snare drum, overhead left, right, hi hat. I don't need any of those tracks separately. I just need a decent drum sound, you know. So I would say to any users on the platform, avoid giving too much audio files to a session. It's preferable to have a good balanced mix without the instrument that you're going to be recording, in this case the bass. So a minus bass bounce of your song, or if possible, uh, four tracks like drums and percussion, like a rhythm track, a harmony file or audio file with just keyboards and guitars, for instance, and vocals. So if you provide oh, and the fourth file should be a guide bass. If you have an idea for a bass line that you have already recorded or programmed with the synth, you can send that to me as a separate track so I can zoom in what you're coming from and then work from that. So this should be the four files I mentioned: harmony, rhythm, vocals, and the guide bass track. If I have that, I'm very happy because I can create my own balance and it won't consume all the prep time because it's very nice when you get to run through the song at least a couple of times before the client comes in. So whenever I have the chance to do that, I usually record a trial take, which is not required because not everybody does that. But I discovered that for my workflow, it's very helpful to record myself during my first run through of the song, even if I commit mistakes or don't play perfectly. I record it so I have something to play back to the client when he joins the session. This is what I did right here. You can see that there are a couple of like ochre or red audio files here that that are exactly that. My trial take, my first run through Pedro's song.
That's great insight. And I do have a question regarding the mix. How important is for you as a bass player to hear the the actual vocals of a song if it's a song?
It's it's not mandatory to have the vocals, but I always prefer to have it if it's a song for two reasons. Well, the singer is giving me the melody, so it's very important to be conscious about the melody, so I don't overplay when there's a melodic phrase. I don't step on it, step over it, and it's the worst thing for a bass player when you don't know exactly where are the sweet spots on the songs where you can actually contribute some melodic content, and then if you don't know what the melody is, you end up playing over it. So it's a disaster. So it's very important to have the melody there. I would say that it's not the most important thing to be featured on the mix. When you're preparing your stereo bounce of your song, uh, don't assume this is the final product. It's a CD track or a live concert where the voice should be up front. It's not. It should be there, but not up front. For the bass player, the most important thing is the drums slash percussion and the harmony. Those two elements are fundamental to what we do, because the bass is actually the glue that keeps all those elements together in, within an arrangement. So we're defining the harmony because we're always the lowest note underneath every chord. So it's not the C major. If the guitar player is playing an A minor and I play a C, it's a C with a six. It's not an A minor. So there you go. We need to have a clear understanding of what the harmony is. So this needs to be present right after the rhythm and then melody.
This is actually something really cool about bass. I know that a lot of bass players like to change the harmony just by changing the bass note.
Yeah.
It's something fun that a bass player of a band that I used to play used to do, and we would be like, "Oh my God, everything just changed!" Then we have to rearrange and just kind of find ourselves before we go to the next chord. We have a question by Abdullah Sharaf. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sorry if I'm not. He's asking if it's mandatory to have a bass idea, or can you come up with bass ideas as well?
Not at all, Abdul. And I just remember that we have a session coming up. I remember your name. So all right. No, by all means, if you don't have any idea, leave it to me. I'm more than happy to contribute my own ideas on a song. It's just uh, I'm emphasizing the preconceived base thing because it happens a lot, especially with composers that write down everything. So I'm used to recording soundtracks, for instance. On those cases, it's all written notes. I get a score with every single note written down on music notation. So on those cases, I need to stick to the script. I play what's written. But in between that and not having anything written down, I can do anything. And I really enjoy creating bass lines. So if you don't have any preconceived idea, don't bother to. You don't need to feed me with that. If you have perhaps a reference track, something that you can submit as, oh no, my song has some resemblance to that. I would like the bass to be kind of like that bass on that song, with that kind of melodic contour or that kind of tone. So it's useful to submit a reference, but not even that is mandatory.
And when you don't have an idea of what you want as a bass, we want you to come up with something. What kind of materials do you need? Do you only need the audio files is okay? Would you require a chord chart, maybe reference, written the chords that are in
Well,
the
when,
song?
when the less specific you are about what you want on to be present on the bass track, the 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 list material you need to to give me. So if you have just a song structure, if it's a simple song, I can figure it out on my own. You know, you don't even need to write down the chords. But if it's a more complicated uh, composition, like with four different sections, and it's helpful to have a chord chart. Just so, and also helpful because and during the process of recording, we might find that we need to go back to measure 24 and play that phrase a little differently on the second take, for instance. So by having a chord chart with measure numbers and everything, it makes it so much easier to locate where we need to go back to within the DAW session. Let me share again my screen and show it to you guys. What I mean is, okay, here's my the ruler on top of the logic session, where you see a yellow line. This yellow line shows how long the recording is, and you can see there are numbers there. I'm gonna enlarge the, the visual here so you can actually see it better. All right, so as you see up there, we're on measure 11 right now. So if we need to fix something on measure 14, I can easily locate it and just put the cursor there and start recording and from that point, or do a punching from that point. So the chord chart is very helpful also for that, not just for letting me know what the harmony is, you know.
That's awesome. So, since you already are sharing your screen, can we jump off and start talking about the song and how a
Sure.
regular session with Musiversal would be? For those that are listening to us, you are actually listening to Bruno's audio through my microphone, because I'm using, of course, a lot of crazy routing here in my setup, so that you can hear the audio that I'm hearing via Audio Movers. So Audio Movers is a platform that we use here at Musiverse to listen to the musicians, because it sounds way better than Zoom or Google Meets or any other platforms, because you can actually stream the audio in 44.1Ks, which are regular streaming, regular WAV file resolution for recordings and actually CD quality. So if you want to listen to the Audio Movers link directly, I am sharing that in the chat right now. You have the Audio Movers link and the password, and you can just go over there and you listen to Bruno directly. And that is the best quality that you're going to get, especially uh, of his instrument. If not, you can just keep listening here via Circle, and you'll be listening to the audio that I am routing from Audio Movers to this call right now. So, Bruno, how would a typical session start? You mentioned that you already did some recording there. You just passed through the song at first. How would you
Yeah.
start the session out?
Well, the sessions usually start 15 minutes before the client comes in. So, for instance, if a client has a session starting at 2:15 p.m., I'm already in that session from 2 o'clock. So, starting at 2 o'clock, I will open my door, set up the session according to the specifics given by the client on the platform. You know, BPM, sample rate, and such information. I'm gonna download the material and I'm gonna set it up in the session. So it's gonna look like this. Let me share my screen again. All right, so it's gonna be like in my case, I kind of customized my template here, my Musiversal template. So I have, as I've shown before, the purple track is the client track. So I have a folder for client stems, and depending on the number of files that I'm given by the client, there might be like up to 4 or 5 channels inside that client stems folder. today we have only one because Pedro provided a good stereo bounce of the song. What I call a minus bass play along track, which is the most efficient way to go if you have a song sketched down that sounds good and it's on the grid. By on the grid, I mean the performance is consistent with the tempo, which is the case here. So every instrument Pedro had already recorded, even if it's not a definitive track. For instance, drums or the acoustic guitar or the keyboards, they might be end up being substituted for better performances later on, but they are already a correct rendition of the song structure. So it's well balanced and it's enough for me to record my bass over it.
I'm sorry.
So this is the purple track.
Yeah, can I just jump in? You mentioned something that I think I have a really important question there. I recorded drums with Chris Barber on the song before I came here to the session to record with you, and I did
Mhm.
not edit the drums. Of course, Chris plays really well and he played on bit correctly, but it's not 100% on the grid. Like it still needs
Uh-huh.
editing. Should I have edited the drums before this or
On this case, not. I mean, it's not necessary because his performance is pretty good. I
okay?
was, by the way, I was in that session.
Oh yeah, that's
It
true.
was
You
the
were there.
previous webinar. I was attending to it, and I watched him as he recorded the drum track, and it's pretty good. So, I mean, if you're the very, it's, I mean, you're very picky about being on the grid, then you should edit it. But it doesn't sound like it's deviating too much. It's just one spot midway into the tune, and it's just for half a measure, so it doesn't set me off by any degree. So
For you as a
it's
musician,
okay.
it's okay.
It's okay, and also because I have a click track, so even if the drummer deviates like for one measure a little bit, I can always consciously stay on top of the beat if I want to. Alternatively, I can always mute the click and follow the let's call it inconsistency of of the performance if needed. Because sometimes it's something that's not perfect, but it's very musical. So it's a compromise that sometimes you choose to submit to.
Yeah, that is the case. Some music is not 100% on grid. It sounds natural that way, and
Hmm.
actually, some characteristics of some genres require music not to be on the grid. So, I want to move on to our session and start recording. But before we do that, we have a question by Radiotherapy. Uh,
Oh
he
yeah.
just asked, "What is a common mistake that usually clients av- do, and what they should avoid?"
Well, the first thing to avoid at all costs is sending the material once the session has started, because then you will be eating up your own session time. And it might seem obvious, but it has happened to me on the unlimited platform on my first session, on my very first session. The client didn't realize has had not sent me any files, and his session was starting at 2:15, and it was already 2:13 when I got notification that he had sent me his first file. So we ended up eating some good like 8 minutes or more of his session to downloading stuff and figuring out where what goes where, and you know this is one thing. But the more specifics would be make sure that all your tracks, if you have more than one track, like drums, guide bass, harmony, vocals, they are all the same size and they are all perfectly aligned. The
Consolidated, yeah.
themselves, and also in relation to the grid. So your file needs to start on bar one, even if it has a pickup measure, because I'm gonna be start recording at the same point. So if you're starting on, if the first note happens on beat one of bar one, I'm gonna need to record my bass one measure before that, in order not to lose any transients, any elements of the first note. And if it's a pickup measure, let's say it's a song in 4/4 and it goes 1, 2, 3, ba ba do ba doom. That phrase, which starts before the downbeat, uh, it cannot be the beginning of your file. Your file should start at the beginning of the measure. So that's important, and it makes because if you don't pay attention to that, we are gonna waste some time correcting this during the session. So it's much better to have it well organized and well cut files, and always be very precise on the tempo information. I have many times clients change tempos of their songs after they book the session, and then they forget to correct it on the session data. And then when I download the files, the tempo doesn't have anything to do with what's written on the on the session on the session page. So, for instance, BPM is 80, and then his file is 86, and it won't match. I'm gonna set up my DAW at 80, and his files won't be on the grid. So I will eventually figure out it's where the beat is, but it's gonna consume time.
And all that precious time for those sessions, like if it's a 3 minute song and you waste 8 minutes trying to figure out it, that's like almost two
You just
takes that you
Yeah,
lose.
you just wasted two takes. Exactly. It's you have to do the math and really calculate how much you're willing to sacrifice. If I'm a client, I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice anything. I would like to
Exactly.
do music for 30 minutes and leave the last 5 minutes for the musician to upload the files, which I will have to do anyway.
And
So
talk about
that's
weather.
usually what I do. On a 35 minutes unlimited session, I usually save my last 5 minutes for uploading the stems or the session if the client prefers, in the case uh, in case the client uses Logic as I do and prefers to receive the whole session. One very important thing that it's worth mentioning: most people ignore the fact that the bass is an octave transposing instrument. What does that mean? It means that any note written on a bass score will sound an octave lower than what's written. It's not the other way around, because it's very frequently, today for instance, I received a very neatly written score with all notes and very clear and well written, but everything outside the bass range. So like 8 ledger lines under the pentagram, and it's impossible to read well. Transposing in foresight reading is you're bound to make a mistake eventually. So it's very important to consider this: the lowest note on the bass, both the electric bass and the double bass, they have more or less the same range. People think that, oh, the double bass goes lower. It doesn't. It's the same note. It's a low E, unless it's a 5 string. If you have a 5 string double bass or a 5 string electric bass, you can go as low as a B, a fourth below the regular E. But that E is represented by the note on the lower ledger line on the bass clef. It's the first lower ledger line. So below that, it's not available on the bass. And the other common mistake is that people think, oh, the electric bass goes higher than the double bass. It's the other way around. The length of the scale on a double bass is longer, so we can reach higher notes on the double bass. It's very impractical for pizzicato playing, but for arco for bow playing, it's fine.
I did not know about that. I thought the double bass was like just lower and just like
No, no.
low. That's all. That's all.
Yeah,
Uh,
it sounds fatter because it's
yeah, it
it
has
has
more
a
body.
huge
Yeah.
resonance, and but it's the same notes.
So just maybe I am a little bit rusty when it comes to notation, but the lowest
Mhm.
note on a bass, the electric bass as well as the double bass, is an E2, right? Or
It's
E1.
written in E2, but it's no,
It's
it's an E1
okay,
because it's E1,
but
but
you
it
write it as
sounds
an E2.
no, you write it as an E1 and it sounds like an E2.
Oh,
So that
okay,
low the very low the very first lower ledger line on the bass clef, it's an E, right?
right.
When you write that note there, it's gonna sound an octave below that.
Okay, now I got it.
So, for instance, if an open G string on a bass, it's the first space, the upper space, right, on the bass clef. It sounds an octave below. It sounds like the first G on the first line
Right.
from the bottom up.
So
So
yeah,
it's like that. It's the same thing with the guitar. The guitar is also an octave transposing instrument.
awesome. So it's pretty much like write whatever you want to write, but be mindful that it's going to sound an octave lower.
Exactly, and be mindful of the extension of the instrument, because lots of time people send me stuff that not even a 5 string bass can handle. So
Yeah, I
it's
totally get that part. I've been guilty of that.
probably because they're programming things on the synthesizer without realizing what the actual notes are on paper, and then it's just a matter of choosing the proper clef, because you can even write it as it sounds in concert key using all those lower ledger lines, but don't forget to to bring in the right clef, the bass transposing clef before you print the part or you export it as a PDF. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with a chart that looks like I have an example I can show you guys. It's on my it's very useful right now. So let
Yeah,
me show it to you
I've been
guys.
guilty of writing notes out of range in the past. It's just like I had a sound library that just kept going. It never stopped, and it sounded great, and I loved it, and I just wrote it.
Yeah,
I figured out, wait,
that's that's the danger of marvelous sample libraries that do
right?
impossible things. Is that
They sound, yeah, and then the musician wanted to, kill me. But anyways,
all right? Here's can you see I'm gonna share my screen with you guys. You're gonna see
awesome.
the
We can't
what
see
I'm
it
talking
yet, but
about.
yeah,
Yeah, here it is. Hold on. Here's the chart.
there you go.
It's Tim Yemen. It's a user from Unlimited. We had a chat today on the platform because of that score. I told him, man, it's perfectly written. Only it's not. It's there are lots of notes. See, from starting on bar 10 here on the pizzicato. This is a D C that doesn't exist on a double bass, and then it goes under E flat, and then look at what happens on bar 16. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how many ledger lines are here. I don't have my
Oh, what a
glasses.
nightmare.
So this is non-existent. Not even on a 5 string bass. And also what happens in the end, you see?
Yeah, so it's pretty much like you
So
mentioned, is a perfectly written score, is just in the wrong octave.
exactly. So he sent me the one with the proper bass clef, because it's called bass clef for a reason. It's not just when they say bass clef, it's not the normal F clef, which is this one here. It's an F clef that has a tiny. Sometimes it has a tiny eight on the side or below it, just to remind whoever is written the score that's an octave transposing score.
Exactly, because the F clef is usually used for bass, but like when we are talking about the voice bass, in a choir,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
awesome. So let's get to recording because we've been talking for so long. I
Too
guess
much.
people want to listen to music.
Sure.
So starting out, before we go to the music, but what kind of sounds can we get from the bass? Do you usually record the bass cleanly? How do you get to the sound that you use to record?
And can you repeat the question because
Oh, sorry.
I took off my
So
headphones. Sorry.
regarding the bass sound, the
Mhm.
electric bass sound, we know that we can, do a lot of things when it comes to pickups and amplifiers and all that kind of stuff. How do you get to the sound, and what kind of choices do I have as a producer of the actual bass sound?
Well, first of all, I have a very varied selection of instruments. I have like three jazz basses, which is this is a Fender jazz bass, and this is a staple from the 70s and 80s pop music. So lots of stuff has been done with this instrument. So it's very good for pop music. In fact, the jazz bass works on almost anything. And also, I have also some precision basses, which are great for R&B, rock, um, Brazilian music. It's another reference instrument. Then we have like five string instruments. I have a Music Man Stingray 5 in the back there. It's out of the picture, but it has a low B string on it, so it goes pretty low, and it's a more modern sounding. It's an active instrument. Then I have a couple of very vintage sounding instruments, a short scale Hofner, short scale Fender Mustang. Those are pretty good for 60 stuffs, kind of like Beach Boys kind of bass sounds, the Beatles.
Gotcha.
And what else? Oh, the fretless. How must
Oh,
I forget the fretless?
interesting.
Because the fretless is an electric bass that has no frets, so it is a non-tempered instrument like a violin and a double bass. It has no frets, so it means you can be very expressive with it. You can vibrate notes, and it's a very, very interesting instruments when you have like melodic bass parts, or you want me to actually play the melody at some point in tune or improvise a solo. It lends itself very nicely to expression from a soloist perspective, and it's also very articulate. It really cuts through in a mix. I
That's
don't know
awesome.
how many of you are familiar with Jaco Pastorius, for instance, which is the the, the reference basis for the fretless bass. And in fact, people book a lot of sessions with the fretless bass in Musiversal. Something I
That's
do a
awesome.
lot.
So when I am looking for a specific sound, and I don't know anything about bass, I don't know what I'm looking for. I just is it the best way because you have a lot of options, and we have only have 30 minutes of session. So
All right.
I imagine trying it every single bass out and every single option out is a little bit, time
No, no, no.
consuming.
Yeah. If you
What
if
is
you're
the best way to
asking,
get to the sound that I am looking for?
usually if the client doesn't say anything, I make that decision considering the material he sends me. So if it's a pop song, kind of a R&B kind of thing, I might go with a P bass. If it's a vintage sounding thing, I might grab an instrument with flat one strings. If it's a very melodic thing with a kind of a word music flavor to it, I will pick up the jazz bass. Uh, or I might suggest the fretless. But the thing is, the very important thing that users might consider is the fact that we can basically produce three very different sounds with the bass. The standard finger technique which is let me see here. I don't have my okay, my amplifiers. Okay. So this is the bass played finger style, which is what we do like 80% of the time, I'd say. Then there's the slap technique, which is very much associated with funk, but can be used almost anywhere. So I would play more or less the same line. It sounds very percussive, and if you want to bring some funk to your song, it's a good way to get it. And last but not least, the pick. So if you play the bass with the pick, it's gonna give you a very strong attack, very defined attack, and a very round note that doesn't with a fast decay. Especially if, the way I'm gonna play now, which is kind of palm muting at the same time. So
Sounds awesome.
there you go. Three options from the get go. So with any instrument, I mean the jazz bass, the precision bass, the Music Man, I can do that with any of those instruments. And
Sounds
but this
awesome.
is the thing to consider. And when it comes to the double bass, you don't have the slap, you don't have the pick, but you have the bow. So it's the the perfect tool for melodies and expressive playing. So the double bass can be used, can be played finger style or with a bow. And the electric bass has three options and three
Definitely.
basic techniques.
Awesome. So let's get started and record some tracks. We still have 15 minutes left, so I guess we can get like a couple of takes before this live is
All right.
done. So I've already listened to a couple of the things that you've done in this track, and I really like because it's a very simple song and a very simple bass line. The bass is pretty much just holding, as you mentioned before, is holding everything together and kind of keeping the rhythm with the kick drum. And I'm
Uh-huh.
looking for something that is exactly like that, something that's very clean and something that is not going to, take the attention out of the other stuff that's going on. So
All right.
if you want to give it a try, let's go.
All right. Let's do this. I'm gonna start by kind of sticking to your acoustic guitar part, and then gradually developing from that template.
Sounds great.
All right. Here we go. And let me just go back on Google Chrome and mute the audio so I don't get that weird feedback. All right. All right, let me go back to. All right, and
Sounds awesome, dude. So we
all
already
right.
have a question by Radiotherapy. He asked if I can share who played the rhythm guitar. Kinda. I'm a bit embarrassed because it doesn't sound as on time as I would like, but it was myself as a guitar player, and I'm trying to get better. I
All right.
promise. But man, it sounded awesome. This is exactly the vibe that I'm looking for. If I were to ask
Great.
anything differently, I on the beginning, you know that guitar does a little bit of a riff when it gets to the A chord. It does something of a pa 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 thing, and I would love you
Uh-huh.
to do if you can duplicate that on bass more times. Really emphasize that. I think that would be awesome.
Let me locate what you're talking about. Hold on, I'm gonna solo the play along track. So it's when we go into the in the core. It's
No,
inside the chorus,
no, it's in the on the verse. It's right at the beginning.
right at the beginning. All right,
Yeah,
let me.
it's when it gets to the A chord. It's very at the beginning of the verse.
Okay.
That
But over there,
exactly.
all right, got it.
If you can duplicate
All right,
that, if you can,
sure.
emphasize that more, that would be awesome. Other than that, I want to ask how you feel. How do you have any ideas, any thoughts?
Oh, I was thinking that at the beginning, instead of because I was playing kind of palm muting, which makes it sound. I guess it's the way you play it acoustic guitar too, right?
Yes.
Kind of muting a little bit the strings. So it's gonna equalize the frequencies between the bass and the acoustic guitar. It's gonna sound better if I do it. So I'm gonna play like this,
I like it.
and then switch to regular pizzicato when the drums come in, like with a hi hat and everything,
Yeah.
and then keep the slap thing as I did just on the end as an outro and a you know
Yeah, it kind of
go for
goes raising the intensity as the song goes on. Yeah, I like that. Yes.
exactly. Exactly. I was just confused at a certain point where the harmony doesn't go the normal cycle of 4 bars and then E minor, A, G, A. I noticed that the cycle was longer than I expected, but I think I'm gonna get it right this time. Let me just check out if that spot where I
Maybe it's in the second chorus
yeah
because
exactly before the that break.
yeah, because there's like three chorus. The first chorus is just like one way around, and then the second and third chorus is the chorus two times, and maybe
Yeah.
that's what's a bit confusing.
There's also that spot when you hold
Yeah,
DJ for
it holds a little bit. Yeah.
2 bars, yeah, and then Now I know. It's only on bar 74. That's what I want. I needed to know. Okay,
Okay,
here we
awesome.
go.
Let's go.
Let me mute the phone. All right, let me jump back into switch the audio on. All right, and I'm back.
All right, man. You did my client that is on the other room just smile and shake his head, so I think you're doing something right.
All right,
It
good to
sounds
know, man.
awesome. I really enjoyed it, and I think it just fits perfectly with the song, really.
Great.
And Nicole just said that there's pure fire in the room as well. Hector said
Oh,
it
great.
sounds really nice. And radiotherapy also says, yes, fuego. So
Yeah, I
I
like the
think,
meme he put on there in the
right?
chat.
So, man, this sounds amazing. And I really want to thank you for making this song sound awesome. And also for taking the time of helping us out here. While I ask anyone if anyone has any other questions for Bruno before we go, we have 2 minutes before we go. I know that Bruno has a chart of a document that he can share with you guys about the best materials, the best way to deliver materials for him to work. So, Bruno, you want to share that with everyone?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, so if you look at the chat, Bruno is gonna put the PDF right there, and it's pretty much just like an instruction manual as to how to deliver files for him, how he likes to work, and how you can make, your sessions more efficient. Because when it comes to using Musiversal Unlimited and Musiversal in general, it really comes down to getting to know the musician very well and creating a relationship. And the more that you record together, the more that you're going to know each other, the more you know how each other works, and the more you can take out of a session. After a while, you just know exactly what to communicate to get the sound that you want. And you're going to be able to get much more out of a session than you would usually do, like in the beginning. So,
Exactly.
so do we have any last questions? We have 1 minute. So please, guys, I see a lot of people thanking us for our time, and I thank you guys for joining us tonight. Bruno, any final thoughts?
Well, I recommend giving it a read on that file I just put there because it's gonna save you guys lots of session times, precious minutes, and it was great having you and sharing what is the Musiversal experience with you guys. And honestly, from my standpoint, I mean, my side of the fence, uh, it's great. I just have a great time every day doing this. So I record like I do like four or five sessions a day, and I'm always happy doing it. Being exposed to different kinds of music, different artists from all over the globe. So it's a very interesting community on its own. So you're in for a treat.
Definitely. And let me say, I've been with Musiversal for a year now, and being part of this community is just awesome because you get to connect with amazing musicians at all times, and not only amazing musicians from our roster, but also amazing producers, and just hear a lot of great music and learn about a lot of great music every day. So to everyone that joined today, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining. And remember that tomorrow, the next cohort for Unlimited is going live. So if you haven't joined Unlimited yet and you want to, tomorrow is the time. Don't be late. And we have limited seating. So be the faster and make sure that you grab your seat to make this, to make your spot your own and be able to enjoy more and more sessions like this. And Radiotherapy asks to share the final song. Yes, I will. Actually, right after this session, I'm having a audio editing session with Arthur Romeo, which is also available in our platform. And later, I'm having a mixing session with Enrique, which is not available on Unlimited, but he is available for as an extra. He's a great mixing engineer, has won many Grammys, and I'm very excited to work with him. Chris Hardy just asked, "How do you grab a seat?" So if you haven't joined the waitlist yet, you can just email us at Museverso and request information about it. We can, if you're in this live stream right now, you actually don't have to be on the waitlist. We're gonna, of course, give you a spot since you are here. And if you are in the waitlist, you already have your seat guaranteed, basically. So Nicole just shared her email there. Just give her a shout, and she'll be more than happy to help you guys. If you want to give me a shout as well, you can just email me. I'm gonna drop my email on the chat as well. Uh, Bruno, thank you so much, man. It's always
All
a
right.
pleasure to work with
Thank you
you.
for that groovy song, man.
Oh man, you have to thank my client.
Pleasure
He
recording it. Yeah.
You have to thank my client. He's the one responsible for that, and it's really really fun
Well,
to work with that.
well, send him my kudos for that for a nice lay down groove. It's really nice to record that kind of thing, man. It's lots of fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed, man. And I can see like from the glass, like he's great, like he's really, really happy with the result as well. So I'm glad that that's happened. So
I'll be posting a snippet of this session on Instagram tomorrow. Not
awesome.
tomorrow, maybe someday soon.
Yeah, I should have recorded this actually. I just remembered
Yeah,
that.
I did. I actually usually record tiny bits of the session and make snippets for videos with session snippets that I put on my Instagram. I'm gonna put my Instagram on the chat as well, just in case people are interested in seeing more.
Yeah, and if you share, just tag me and I'll share as well because this sounds awesome. So everyone, thank you again for joining, and I'm very, very glad that we had all these guys here, and I'm excited to see you guys over at Unlimited, and excited to see the kind of music that you're all going to make with us. So Bruno just shared his Instagram on the chat. Feel free to grab that and follow him. He's always posting a lot of great music. And if you want to follow at Musiversal, also feel free. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening, and until the next time.
Bye bye, everyone.